I'm Chip Townsend, and this is the Team Chip Podcast. All right, guys, I'm back. Team Chip Podcast again. I'm super excited. Had a little bit of a hiatus from recording because we went through the Christmas and the holidays, etc. So the first one back in a little while for me on my end. You may not know that because they're going out regularly, and that's the goal. So today, in our industry, in the martial arts industry, and probably important in every business, the conversation around retention is huge. So I have a super special guest that I am dying to introduce to you guys. Some of you in the martial arts industry may know him, but his name is Master Christopher Tersak. And the Tersak family martial arts in Jacksonville, Florida. And I'll let him kind of tell a little more about that in a second, but run one of the most organized, professional, amazing programs. I am blessed and honored to get to be in a mastermind group with this young man and his brother sometimes, and his dad, and a family organization that I have utmost respect for, but just run a killer organization. And I say this from the perspective of, I got the honor of going and teaching a seminar one time in their school. Unbelievable. Probably top 3 best schools I've ever been in as far as passion, energy, students just absolutely willing to follow and do anything and work hard. So with all that said, man, I'm honored to have you, Mr. Chris. It's good to have you here.
I appreciate all of that, and very honored to be on this as well. So I thank you for that. This is, I can tell you, we review with the staff constantly. Who do you want to bring in this year? You were always number one on the list. Like, when we bring a mastership back, I'm like, well,
one of these days
we'll do it at some point.
No. Yeah. What a blessing. That is an honor to me, and no pressure on my end. I'm happy to come if I can. And if not, it's all good, man. I just am honored to get to hang out with you every now and then through our Ascend meetings, the mastermind meetings we're in together, and some other things. But man, I just want to jump in. So, all right, Mr. Chris, first, tell us a little bit about Tersak Family Martial Arts. How did it start? Just give us a quick synopsis.
Yeah. So, we bought it from my instructor. We're actually celebrating our 10-year anniversary this May. So 10 years ago when he retired. So I trained with him. I started at 5. Nicholas pretty much grew up in the school because he was born just before I got started. I met my wife here. Her family was training, and about midway through college, he decided he was officially going to retire. This was about his 4th time announcing that, and we were the next in line for who he was going to offer it to. And I was like, I wasn't supposed to stay in town for college.
Right.
I had many other opportunities until Angelina came along, and that kind of shifted gears a little bit. So when
right.
Since you're staying and you're doing pharmacy, why don't you, is this something you want to do? And I'm like, absolutely. Like, if I'm going to be in Jacksonville, I always plan to be part of the school, so why not, pharmacy by day, karate by night mentality. And then in grad school, about halfway through grad school, he kind of moved that retirement date up. Like, we had this nice little timeline up, and for good reason. He was like, oh, it needs to happen now. And so we bought the academy when I was in my 2nd year of pharmacy school, and it was a really rough 2 years. Yeah, I hear this story a lot from some of the. I think I just listened to one of your podcasts from the Pit, and he talked about there's that period where I only had
John Hackelman, right?
A couple hours of sleep, and I'm like, I've heard this story many times. Like, I had those 2 years too, and we as a family had to do it together. I was like, I can't buy the school while being in college. Angelina, quit her job. Nicholas didn't go to college. They ran the school essentially for 2 years, the front face of the school, and I kind of pulled the strings from the back. Dad ended up retiring from corporate, and so at about 2017, everything kind of settled into place, and we just blew up in a good way. It was just all the gears were turning, everything was dialed in, and it's just been. We actually grew through COVID. Most karate schools can't say that, but we had 1 month of no enrollments, but we had no quits that month either. It was really weird.
Wow, that is phenomenal, man. And that's exactly why I wanted to have you on and chat about this. So just a little bit of clarity for people listening. Angelina is your wife. You have a beautiful wife and little ones, a great family. I also love it because she works in the school. You guys do it as a family. Your father, and then Nicholas that you mentioned, is your brother as well. So just so everybody understands, very much a family business, which I think is super, super cool, man. That's awesome.
It's fun. Difficult at times, but I love every minute of it.
It is challenging, right? When your whole family's in the business, it's like, hey, dinner tonight's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's like, do we do dinner before the meeting or after the meeting? What's the best We're out for the
Or at our house, it's, "Are we gonna have the meeting at dinner?" Right, very cool. Alright, man, so I wanted to talk to you real quick, or run through some thoughts on retention and keeping students. So, kind of the idea was, tips to keep your students hooked. All right. Which at the end of the day is retaining our students. Three big R's in the martial arts industry: retention, recruitment, and revenue. And how do we make those things tie together or map it out and make it work? So Master Chris is amazing at retention. So real quick, can you share your kind of retention rate, kind of where you guys average? The last I heard I think it was in the 2% range. It was amazing.
Yeah, so our retention, it's getting more difficult as everybody else says, but we averaged about 2.5, 3% in our main location since we bought the school. Right now, it's at, like, 3.01, so it's like it's over that critical number that I don't like. Our new location's averaging about 4.5, and one of the reasons, that contributes to that is, yeah, I was down there with them, like, "Guys, I know you gotta get it lower, but also understand you're having people quit because you can't point out on the floor, and do you see those black belts training this because you don't have any yet. It's new. So, like, over here at the main location, I can always point out that next visual. They don't
Yes.
they have a few more years before they can sit there and go, "Hey, do you see that advanced belt class? You're 6 months away." You
Right.
just have to
Right.
tell them and hope. So there's that dynamic in there.
Yeah, but 3%, man, is awesome. So real quick, if you don't mind sharing, how many active students do you have? You do have 2 locations, which you just mentioned. How many active students do you have at your locations right now?
Yep. So the main location, we are at 582, down from our high point of 656 before we opened the second location. Location two is at celebrating its 2-year anniversary this Saturday and is at 185. We ended the year at 191, so we're trying to catch back up from the January quits.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. That is beautiful. Guys, and I just want to say that those are actual active numbers. Those aren't, has-beens. Those are accurate. And I know that because I've been there and again meet with this guy. So I like to throw that out there because sometimes you ask someone like, how many students do you have? And they're like, oh, we got 600 students. And you really find out later there's 200 active and 400 kind of on the fence somewhere. And it's like, where did they come from? So these are real students showing up on the mat, which is super, super powerful. All right, man. So with those numbers, those are unbelievable numbers, not just in such a good way, Master Chris. So curriculum. Let's talk about curriculum, engaging curriculum. Kind of taught me through rotating versus linear, just some of the tips and tricks, curriculum. Talk to me about curriculum. What does that mean to you?
Curriculum is our core job of what we have to decide is what our students need to learn, right? And in modern martial arts, especially in America, things are changing, and there's a lot of ways to do it the right way. What it really comes down to is, for us, we have that goal of having a large student body and also a large staff because I want people to have that opportunity. I designed a curriculum that was giving the students what I felt they should be getting. Are they learning to defend themselves? Are they learning martial arts versus a sport? Are they, and at the same time, can my staff deliver it the best way possible? Including if everyone calls out sick, how can we effectively make sure students are getting taught things on those critical days?
So, Master Chris, real quick, I may cut in on you a little bit every now and then to ask a question that kind of pops in my head. But someone listening, like a school owner that's listening to this right now, they might be questioning themselves, like, should I be a sport focused school? Should I be a self defense focused school? What are your thoughts on that? Because you guys run a great model. Where do you put your weight at and emphasis?
I so we try to ours is the balance point. We tell everybody, in our martial arts or in all martial arts, there's martial art, there's martial combat, and there's martial sport. So there's the martial art, the forms, those techniques that you're never going to do in self defense, but they look beautiful and they're great. They're great conditioning. A back spin kick. Some of that also transitions to martial combat, right? So your self defense, your practicality of what you're doing, and then the martial sport is the sparring. And I think almost every martial art has some combination of that. And some are going to lean more into we're a tournament school. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some schools lean into, hey, we don't really spar that much. And, in some schools are more traditional and they don't include the self defense part in there. I would say there's nothing, again, there's a lot of ways to do things the right way. It's what you want for your students. Are you someone who's trying to train people for the Olympics or for, karate forms competitions? You're going to be doing a lot more forms work than you're going to be doing sparring work.
Right. So where does the Tersak organization lean in that direction? Or do you feel like y'all keep a pretty good balance of all three
We
areas?
try to balance right in the middle. So, like, we do in-house tournaments. We're not a tournament school. If we have black belts who wanna go compete, we tell them, "You're gonna go do it," but I'm not adding to my weekends going to traveling tournaments. We work in, one of the big changes that we went through is overhauling the self-defense because, we're a Korean-based martial art. great for kicking. But, back in the day when it's like, "Hey, this person is stepping with a punch, and you're gonna sidestep and do a hook kick over their face and then roundhouse kick them again," like, that's not practical for self-defense, right? It's great for sparring. That's an amazing art skill. So, this self-defense part we put kinda pretty heavily on with some of the things that we pulled in, and then at the same time, we tell people forms are still a core part of what we do because that tells me your discipline and how much you care about what you're doing. And for some people, that's gonna be their favorite part. They're gonna have to spar because they have to, but they're gonna put more emphasis on forms, and that's okay.
Right. Absolutely. I love that. And I love what you said about, the forms part because, the conversations out there in the world sometimes are they really practical and all this? Obviously, they're not practical for a fight. But man, when you do forms in your school and you have students that buckle down on them and show that self-discipline, that is so, so cool that you see that piece of it. And I think that's awesome. We do the same thing. So you mentioned being a Korean-based school. What style did you come out of originally?
A Tong Sudo offshoot, so it was a Tong Sudo school that came from Mudokwan. Our grandmaster was actually in town, and he retired this week. I think this Saturday was his last belt promotion, and, he kinda made his own little branch of Tong Sudo. Same kicking, same techniques, just kinda redid the forms, and I actually appreciate the forms that he made for how we teach students. It's actually helped create our curriculum the way that it is. That was our core art. I grew up doing pretty much all Tong Sudo, and then, in our local organization, some got into jiu-jitsu, and I got into Filipino martial arts through another one, and so we've kind of put those 3 things together with a little bit of boxing, and that's kind of created the Tersak martial arts system.
So you kind of have a mix of some Tang Sudo covers the kicking area, a little bit of boxing. You have some Filipino martial arts and some jujitsu as well, right? Very, very, very cool. I love that. So, how do you keep your finger on the pulse with almost 600 active in that school on what your students are kind of wanting and needing, if that makes sense? Do you have a way that you keep your finger on that?
Yeah, many ways. Number one is I don't teach a lot of the classes, but I am on the mats almost daily, walking around. So I see that. I always use our black belt testing and our black belt prep classes as kind of a 2-year response to how things are going. So our rotating curriculum lasts 2 years, and so every 2 years we go through and I'll make notes at black belt testing on how students are doing. And so when it comes up for review, I'm like, "Hey, I've noticed the last couple of years the sparring has gotten better. The kicking has gotten worse. I would like to not sacrifice the sparring. I'm happy we're back to pre-COVID sparring. How can we make the kicking a little bit more dynamic with better technique? And what needs to give, what needs to sacrifice?" And so it's little tweaks. We don't do massive overhauls anymore. And so, what's the focus gonna, on curriculum weeks, do we include sparring drills on curriculum weeks, which is what we did for a couple years just to get the sparring back in again, where they're not making contact with each other, but we can focus the technique. And so that's a constant review of things. And then every testing cycle, actually, I can show this to you because we just finished our belt tests. All of our instructors fill out a packet of they've put their own KPIs, but it's got 3 pages of them giving me feedback from their specific classes, their challenges, their challenging students, their wins, their losses, their feelings on the curriculum at the moment. Because I have instructors that are all over the place, from Tigers to our 2 and 3-year-old program, who also teach a black belt class, and so they can give me that report, and I can use that in our one-on-one meetings to dial in how we deliver our curriculum.
Nice. Well, I was going to ask you, a lot of times we face kind of challenges in keeping the curriculum functional, keeping it fun, keeping it. And so I was going to ask you how you handle that. And you've already kind of answered the question. And I love it because you're constantly looking for feedback. You listen to your team, and it sounds like you're constantly serving your team as well, right?
Yeah, my thing is whenever I redesign the curriculum, yeah, I think I mentioned is it a benefit for the students? The answer is usually yes, but I always run it through the filter, is it a benefit for our staff teaching it? Because if they're struggling to deliver it, no matter how amazing it is, the students aren't going to get the best version of it. And so I always think, I think staff first or team first, I would say, because I've got volunteers, students second, because there's things Nicholas and I'm like, this would be amazing. We get 3 months, and I'm like, our team can't deliver this. It'd be amazing if they could, but we need to rethink how this fits into the curriculum because they can't teach it the right way.
Well, then that brings another question for me. So I know with me, I have some, I have certain days that I work with the team, et cetera. So how often do you, and I want to say again, I love that perspective of team and, team first and then, students. but how often do you just work with your team? So, like, let's say there's some piece of the curriculum that you're saying, wow, it'd be great if they could do that. Do you spend time pouring into them to help them polish them and to move them forward so they can?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So we have a staff training class every Friday. That's for our upper level staff. It's not really big because most of my staff is still high school and college. So but my main team, Nicholas, Angelina, our front desk team, and my two second instructors, they're there for that, and everybody else sometimes makes it if they are off school. And then every month I have an instructor training class. Usually on a Friday night, it's 2 hours. We do an hour of training, curriculum review. Hey, in the last month, I noticed you've taught, a couple of these have been taught wrong, or this is going really well. So since the students are picking it up, here's some karate candy you can deliver instead. So we're not boring the students. And then it's an hour of instructor specific things. And then we have a 13-week testing cycle. The instructor class before belt promotions, we do an instructor summit. It's 4 hours and we do a full review of the upcoming cycle. So I give them what it's going to be. It's in our Spark app, so they can also watch the videos if they happen to have forgotten any bits and pieces. And I tell them, come prepared for questions. I know you know this already. I'm going to spend the first hour essentially running a class and quizzing you and seeing where the mistakes are being made. See if you have any questions. Hey, this is a newer instructor, so he's going to have a lot more questions. And then the next 3 hours kind of goes off of on tangents based off of how that first hour went.
I love that. That is so powerful. So constantly pouring into your team is kind of the point I'm trying to get to, and it's just so important that we pour into and serve our team when we get to the top. It's like when I say get to the top, a lot of people think of leadership in businesses, this pyramid where you sit at the top and kind of tell people what to do. When in reality, I like to think of flipping it and being at the bottom. Now that we're here and we have a team, I'm going to get on the bottom and I'm going to kind of watch and help and step in if I need to. But how can I serve you and how can I give back? And it sounds like you're doing a great job of that. Hence that retention rate. That's amazing, man. But it works, right? So you're constantly looking for ways to polish them, serve them, and give them more. Uh, so uh like personal attention with your students, I think this is something that you guys may be kind of unique at and do uniquely based on some things we've talked about before. But you talked about, your staff and team first, you do instructor summits, you do instructor trainings weekly, so you're constantly pouring into them. How do you pass that down to the students and kind of make things personal for them?
Yeah. So besides the team trainings, one of the things I'm on a post-holiday hiatus because January I usually take the time to pour into the students is I do one-on-ones with my instructors and senior staff, and we alternate every week between like a business specific one-on-one, and the next week is physical training. It's just a 20-minute private lesson one-on-one with me. So they're getting their sometimes I tell them, you tell me what you want to work on, or I'm going to pick what we're going to work on. And so because they don't get to take as much, they don't get to train as much as they used to because they're teaching everything. And so we apply that same mentality in class. So we have something called development coaches. They used to be called phantom instructors, but it was confusing the students. When we first purchased the school, we had a ton of extra, we called them blacktop instructors. And I didn't have job spots for all of them, but I was trying to retain them. And some of them weren't the best qualified at the time to teach classes, but they'd earned their black tops. And so I was trying to find a way to not hurt their feelings. And so they were called phantom instructors. Their job is while the main instructors were teaching, they would grab one student at a time. I took the 1 minute principle from Kovar's, and you're going to spend 2 to 3 minutes with a student or 5 minutes with a group of students, max of three, one-on-one attention. And you're independent of the class. Like we ignore you, you ignore the instructor. Just don't pull them out in the middle of if it's you're directly speaking to a student, don't grab that student. But and that ended up evolving into probably the coolest program that we have, and it's one of the most popular. Most of our leadership team eventually wants to become a development coach versus a full in front of the class instructor. But every class we have, there's 1 to 3 people pulling students out one on one. So the instructor's delivering the material and operating the class, and then we have this team that does one-on-one attention every single day.
I love it. I love it. And it's a way to keep your team, if your leadership team is growing and you're pouring into them, sometimes you do feel like, gosh, where can I give them a job? So it keeps those guys engaged. It gets them some experience in a small setting where they're just like one-on-one. Man, what a powerful thing. So I'm going to ask you again if you'll just kind of walk through that, because I think that's very unique and it's very powerful. And again, I keep saying it because I want to make sure people understand this is about retention. You're serving those guys at such a personal level right there by doing that. So walk us through it again. You have your development coach do what?
So yeah, so the most important person in the class is the instructor, obviously. And then I tell everybody if everybody else calls out sick, whoever that second person is the development coach because every instructor can conduct your method or solo run a class. It may not be the best class, but you can do that. Their job is from the moment they walk on the mats is to start pulling students out one on one. So we have a DC station corner. We used to use progress cards that had their curriculum and they would initial, hey, Master Chip knows his form. I put my initials next to it. We've actually recently switched to an iPad-based one so parents can see how their students are doing. Game changer, but it's fantastic. They if it's one student, I tell them you have up to 3 minutes. Your job, you're not there to award them stripes, you're not there to fail them, you're coaching them. And if they happen to do well enough, they earn their stripe, and so that they get that constant, sharpening the edge, little details that's personalized to them. We know this student's, on the spectrum, so they're gonna get, we're gonna be a little light on the details. We know this student, just came back from an injury and they're more in catch-up mode. Hey, this is a student who super athletic, picks things up, so we're gonna hold them a little bit to a higher standard and push them a little harder in that one-on-one scenario. Or they'll grab 3 students and they'll have I say if you grab 2 or 3, you have 5 minutes because you can kinda clump them together for those things. And, most of our classes average 30, our beginner classes average about 30 to 40, our higher level ones about 60 people. So these coaches are literally nonstop for about 4 hours. And guys, you don't wait for the class to bow in. You walk on the mats, you grab a student, you put them back in there, you grab the next one. And so generally, every one of our students gets one on one attention every week. It's not every class,
That is
but every
amazing.
week they get some type of one on one attention.
That's amazing for almost 600 active students too. That's so phenomenal. So, is there an order of priority? And I'm getting a little bit in the weeds, but how they grab people. So, like when you walk in, say you've got three development coaches floating the sides, staying out of the way, but they're kind of like that ninja, right? That slips in, grabs a kid, helps them for a minute. They have a process for start at the bottom of the room? And then my follow up question to that would be, are they required to get to every person in the room, every class, or can they miss some people?
Um, I had to drop that requirement when the classes got too big because if you guesstimate, in general, most classes have one DC. We're just getting to the point where we're getting TNT members who are like assistant ones. So 3 minutes a student for an hour class, you only get 20 students. Yeah. So we dropped that one, but what we tell them is assume it's just one person. It's testing cycle dependent. Earlier in the cycle, we're focusing on what we call transition belts, just because their curriculum is a little bit more intense. We want to knock them out sooner. Towards the end of the cycle, it's okay. You need to triage this group of students. There's no way they're going to test. They're too far behind. We already know these students have all their stripes. The ones in the middle that are missing one or two, they're your priority. And then from there, you decide whether you want to give these guys attention to make sure that they don't fall too far behind, or do we want to start catching these guys up or giving them some head start. But generally is if we ignore people, it sounds bad, that shouldn't be in the class. Like, so we don't tell people you can't take lower level classes because sometimes they have friends. So if I have an advanced belt taking a junior belt class because their mom's in there, they don't get pulled out in a junior belt class unless they have worked through every beginner student and they still have time left over, which is generally never. So I tell red belts need to be in a red belt class for their curriculum, but you can take lower level classes for the class count, for your friends, just for the training, for zero basing, it's encouraged. So that starts there. And then, yeah, so I told them usually it's either if you have two people, it's great. One person starts at the seniors person who should get pulled out. One person starts at the bottom, and you work your way to the middle. And then the following week, you start in the middle and work your way to the edges. That way people are covering people. That's usually the first 6 weeks of the testing cycle. The second half of the testing cycle is now you have to quickly triage the students to go, I have 3 brand new white belts. They can't be ignored. So, person A, you're just teaching them the basics. They're not testing, but you're teaching them the basics. Person B, you're grabbing the people who are on track and just trying to churn out the stripes now. And then person C, you're grabbing all those people in the middle that they're going to need some work, and if you need help you can grab from person B. So there's some team management that happens too, which is kind of cool because what this program's developed into is we have instructors who manage a class, but now I'm getting a DC who's managing 3 assistant DCs, and so they're having to learn triaging. And it's funny that almost all of them want to go into the medical industry in some way. I'm like, this is going to be great skill sets for you because you're able to look in the situation and know who needs the most help and who can be ignored right now.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to say to people listening, you're getting a master class on multiple things. As a martial arts school owner and operator, you're getting a master class on how to deliver personal attention to your students without spreading yourself too thin. You're getting a master class on how to manage a team and how to develop pieces of developing a leadership team that can help you to do that. It's really, really powerful stuff. So, Master Chris, I'm so thankful for you sharing this stuff with us. Is good. Uh, how important do you think, and how much emphasis do you guys put on in terms of retention on like goal setting, and encouraging goals, et cetera, with your students and your team?
Eh, huge emphasis. So we used to spend all of January talking about SMART goals, and one of my instructors is like, when you spend all of January talking about goals, they don't start their goals till February. So we switched to December. So December we cover SMART goals, and my staff and instructors actually have to submit a 1, 3, 5, and 10 year. It's all next to me, goals that they have in 9 different areas. And so I can kinda see it helps me with my one-on-ones, like, I know you're going to college, we're approaching that mark, or, "Hey, you switched schools from leaving town to in town, so let's adjust some of these, like, you originally had no more martial arts at the 5 years, now I have you for 5 more years." But that then trickles over, so the students are allowed to do those. I encourage the leadership team to do them, and if they bring them in, I'll review them with them. And then, we do all kinds of awards for our students. So, we have our set curriculum. I'm a huge fan, black belt mentality of always do more than what's expected of you. But on top of that, we award our students. So we have, service stars, and for the adults, the gold stars, you have to set a goal at the beginning of the year publicly. We usually write it on a whiteboard, and if you complete it by the end of the year, you get your gold service star. For kids, it's straight A's all year, so I had to have an adult equivalent to that. So we push that very hard on the students, and I always tell black belt specifically, and we actually have a really good black belt retention rate. We average 100 black belts, and we have a 3% quit rate in our black belts. It's pretty much universal through all programs. So we lose essentially 2 to 3 a month, and then usually every belt test we promote 9 to 10. So we're still growing, incrementally. There is you should always have a goal in martial arts. It does not have to be testing. Right, so you're hitting middle school, you're hitting high school. I understand, keeping up with our curriculum and being in test prep is strenuous, and you wanna do band, and that's every Friday night, and it's all year long. So what you don't maybe your goal is to test for your second degree black belt instead of in 2 years, 4 years. Spread it out. Or maybe your goal in martial arts is, "I'm so spread thin with everything I do. I just wanna come in every Monday and kick a bag and let off some steam." You just have to have a goal in the martial arts. It doesn't always have to be your next belt.
Right. I love that. That's so powerful. Goals are so important. It's important that we can visualize where we're going. We have a direction, something to train for, a purpose. And I think you absolutely nailed that. It's so cool. I love the 1, 3, and 5 year plan that you do with your instructors as well. Can you speak about that maybe just a little bit, like, a little bit of detail into how you do that and what you expect from them?
Yeah, so it basically covers, I wanna say it's 7 to 9 areas. So, I tell them you have to do the first 3. You really should do most of them, but, it's martial arts, health, fitness, and I separate all 3 of those in different things. School or career, and I tell them at some point that school becomes career, or if they're an adult already, it's their career specific ones. A financial goal, family goal, a personal goal, and a spiritual goal, I think, are the ones I have on there. So, it's kinda, and then I tell them you go 10 years out and you start there. And it doesn't need to be, and this one doesn't need to be specific. Hey, 10 years from here, I want to be a fifth degree black belt. That's it. That's good. Or, I'll give you mine. 10 years from now is I want to be able to still kick without hurting. That literally is both mine and Angelina's
Funny.
10-year goal that we
So
set this year.
I'm laughing because as we age, those goals shift a little bit. Like,
Yeah,
I
I was
love it.
cracking up when Angelina and I always do something over the holidays where we'll make our separate goals and then try and make sure we combine them. And we both have the same 10-year goal for martial arts. I'm like, that's funny.
That's awesome.
And then 5 years, now we're gonna be more specific. So, 5 years out, this is where you can actually put some more specificity in there. 10 years out, I wanna be starting my career, right? I'm 15 years old, 10 years out, that's a pretty decent. So 5 years out, though, you're in grad school or you're thinking about grad school. So what college are you currently in, and visualize, 5 years from now, you're 20 years old. I'm at University of North Florida, in my junior year because I like to stay ahead of the game, majoring in this, minoring in this. That's my 5-year vision. And then 1 and 3 now become specific goals. What do I need to be doing? What do I need to have achieved in 3 years to make sure my 5-year vision is occurring? And then now, what do I need to be doing this year? What goal to make sure I can actually be on track for that 3-year goal?
Love it. That is a masterclass, man. I absolutely love it. That is so powerful. I think keeping again a direction. I have people come to me sometimes and they're like, I just kind of need I lost my fire because I was working towards this and I clicked that or I achieved that and now I feel kind of empty and I'm like, "Hey, what's your next step? What's your next goal? Where are you headed?" That's so powerful and I love the way you've kind of systemized this stuff. I think that's one of the keys as we grow and scale, we have to find ways to systemize every aspect of what we do from our calendar, the finances, operating the office, program directing, operating the mat, managing the team, and the better we can do that, the better life is. So we were kind of laughing about this. We were both on a little early. I tend to want to show up early and don't always make it happen, but I like to, and I think Hanshi says it's better to be an hour early than a minute late, right? And so anyway, we were both on early. But how is punctuality, and what does that mean in terms of retention for you? So talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, for us, punctuality is important because we teach close to 80 classes a week, and so one starting late and running over late throws the entire day off. But on a retention side of things, it keeps students may not notice it, but it keeps the parents happier, and it just goes back to you honoring your word. If I say class is going to start at 4 o'clock, and 4 o'clock's rough. You get out, your kid gets picked up at 3:30, and you're 27 minutes away. So mom's throwing the uniform at their kid in the car, having them change in the back. You know the scramble, and they walk in, and 4:05, the instructor's still talking. And it's like, why did I rush here for it to not start on time? Or the rush hour classes. So I always, for me, it's I would rather a class run over than start late. And we've actually built that into when we started growing. Like I said, our classes are huge. We kind of have built into our culture classes will start on time, but there's a buffer time at both academies of 5 to 10 minutes that the class can run over, or students can stay, and they're encouraged to like, "Hey, class is officially over, and I know because there were 60 people, we didn't get to coach all of you guys, but the next class starts in 10 minutes. The coaches are still here, so if y'all wanna just go to the, coaching stations and make some lines, and for the next 15 minutes, they'll try and knock a few of you guys out. Just check with your parents first. Mom and dad trump anything we say." So we've kind of built into our culture the stay after, train on your own, be proactive and ask for help kind of mentality. But the classes have to start on time because, like I said, there's people rushing to get there, and it's a visual. It's if you don't start with structure, for us, my instructors, we I teach them. We call it SECT: structure, energy, knowledge, then some. Is if the class has to have structure. If there's no structure, you can't control the energy. That's when you're going to get the 2-year-olds who eat you, the 4 and 5-year-olds who are running around the room,
Right.
the adults and teenagers who are goofing around. So, and whenever you start losing structure, everybody break, everybody take a knee, eyes on who. Let's talk about, hey guys, let's bring it back in. Let's focus back in over here. Let me restructure, line back up, or we restructure the class in some way. Once there's structure, which means starting on time, including the 10-minute prep zone. So, again, being early is if a class starts at 4, it really starts at 3:50 because students are arriving at 3:45. So at 3:50, somebody is on the floor leading the prep zone or doing a mini drill. So at 3:55, the official stretching starts. So at 3:59, the instructor says, line up, and everybody runs to their spots. And at 4 o'clock, we're bowing in. Like there's a process there. And then you can deliver the energy you want. And if the structure and energy in place, the students are going to learn.
Absolutely.
And
I
if they're
love it.
learning, then you can throw karate candy in. There's the then some. It's like, "Hey, you guys are rocking it today. Let me show you. This is not part of the curriculum, but here's a variation that you can learn." And then again, built into the culture, the last class of the day, if they're rocking it, we will bow out class and be like, "Guys, I know class is over, but I'll stick around for 30 more minutes, and we'll keep doing this unless you have to go." So teenagers who are 16, if you're driving, go text your parents and say, "Hey, I'm sticking around for
Make
30
sure it's
minutes
good.
so I don't get phone calls." And if your parents are here and they say, "Nope, Johnny, you got to go home. It's time to go." But we're in the zone right now. Let's keep it going.
This is amazing, man. I love it. I love the way you've built in some buffer time at the end. And I love the mindset of encouraging them to be proactive and ask for help. That is all so powerful, so good. And do you have a lot of people do that? I mean, is it a pretty good? I would imagine so, but
Oh yes, yeah. There's sometimes where I'll have like this is why we have multiple coaches. There was one young lady. So we have a class on Wednesday. It's like my pride and joy class. It's a curriculum class. We never spar in it because there's too many people. It averages about 100 people a week. We have to use the entire academy, both floor spaces, and
wow.
So we don't get through everybody, but the idea is it's just a constant. It's like an old school style. I'm going to teach you one thing, and for 10 minutes, without a lot of disguising repetition, we're just going to drill it. You're going to get with a partner and drill, 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 drill. So it's a very popular class. It's at a convenient time. So usually at 6:30, there's like 30 people who swarm her. She's like,
Right.
I can't do all y'all in 15 minutes. So we've actually had to create like a mini staffing group that there's 5 staff members on and team members on Wednesday that spend about 30 minutes after that class for the students that we didn't get through during the class. And it's I tell our students is, we you don't have to register for classes. You show up whenever you want. And if I notice a trend, I will shift staff, team members higher around that. And that's what happened is Wednesday grew from our smallest and worst day 8 years ago to our busiest, most difficult day to operate. And we just tell everybody, hey, if you want to work here, everybody works on Wednesday. That's your starting day. And then from there you'll pick up other days. So it's
Oh man, I'm so excited because you just said something that's so awesome. Wednesday used to be our slowest day. You looked at it, you thought about it, you analyzed it, you tried new things, and now it's one of your best days, right? Like, people get so into the mindset of like, they'll reach out to me and say, "Hey, I'm having trouble with A, B, or C." You'll throw them an idea, and they go, "Oh, well, that don't work for us," or "Oh, that's a bad day," or "That doesn't work in our community," or I just get crazy inside, like, stop saying that. Figure out a way, like, put in the elbow grease, put in the hustle. And I think one of my big takeaways today, Master Chris, and I already know this about you guys, but I want the people listening to know this about you guys because I have so much respect for what y'all do, and I just love it. Uh, y'all are workers, man. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. You guys are absolute workers. You're masterful martial artists. I've spent time with you, and you guys are amazing technical martial artists, but just not. I had a rash guard on this morning teaching jujitsu, and it's never be outworked. It's what it says right across the back, and I think you guys really personify that amazingly well. So good stuff, man. Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of run through and rehash. We talked a little bit about curriculum, and all of this is, again, I keep saying it, but I just want to make sure we're staying on theme, but kind of geared towards retention. We got to make sure we have a functional curriculum, an exciting curriculum, a curriculum that our instructors can convey well. And so those things all have to tie together, and it matters. We talked about personal attention, and you talked about your development coaches. Man, I love that concept. As a matter of fact, I'm sitting here like I'll probably be messaging you going, "Hey, can you help me with that a little bit? I may be stealing some of these ideas. Y'all are so innovative and in the way that you do things." But the development coaches, I love that. Pulling the kids out, making sure everybody gets attention. We talked about goal setting, the importance of that vision. I love that 1, 3, 5, and 10-year plan you do with your instructor staff and leadership team. Very powerful. Being punctual, staying on time. It's so important. Just a quick funny story. I've told this in the podcast before, I think, but I had a parent one time. There are 2 bases in the United States, Air Force bases that house the B-1 bomber. One is up north, South Dakota, I believe it is, but the other one is here in Abilene, Texas. So, and a lot of people don't know that. I have a little pride about that. That plane is like a world peacekeeper. That plane flies all the time, and a lot of people don't understand it. When you sit and you talk to those pilots that fly that plane, they're like, "Hey, we're in the air a lot. We get calls, we come down, we scrape across the ground pretty fast and sweep the wings and make some noise, and things get quiet. People don't want to deal with this plane, right?" So it's kind of fun. But I had a pilot one time sit at the side and watch his kids do class, and he came up to the front. I'm talking about the punctuality issue. And he said, "Sir, can I talk to you for a minute?" And I said, "Absolutely." And so he's talking. He said, I've got some, questions. He said, "Class started like 3 minutes late. Your instructor was late starting." And he said, "And then they only worked on curriculum for like, 5 minutes of the class. They did this." And he had it parsed out like, and I said, "You know what? It hurt my heart to hear it, right? Like, oh, but I just said, "Man, thank you for sharing that. I so much appreciate this." But the point is, people are paying attention to that, and that punctuality matters so much. And I love what you said. Were you gonna say something about that?
No, I was just saying, it's like it's true. We've had parents who videotape like, "See, this is the 5 minutes they spent on X, Y, and Z." Like, yeah, they just spent 7 minutes on it. Thank you for noticing
Right?
the 2-minute difference.
That's right. And we talked a little bit about, just we were getting into kind of communication, just making sure we're communicating with the team well, et cetera. So, Master Chris, do you have any last minute advice in thinking in terms of an entrepreneur or a martial arts school owner, young instructors on, making martial arts their career, sticking to their guns or improvements? What can you say to them to encourage people to go out there and bust their hump and do it right?
It starts with your own personal passion. We work hard because we love what we do, but we love all parts of it. So, I love being a student. I absolutely love teaching, but I also enjoy some of the business part. For years as a teenager, I'm never going to own a karate school. I don't want to do the business part. And then it was that conversation at the dinner table. It's like, and dad's like, I am a business major. I can do some of the stuff behind the scenes. And very quickly, I learned to love that just as much. Like, there's very little work that I do, but the passion isn't just what you say, and it's not just by how much you work. We all train. I train at least twice a week in martial arts. I spend about 2 hours educating myself on teaching and make sure I also teach 2 hours out of my normal instruction each week. So I'll rotate around what classes I teach between the 2 academies, just so I'm interacting with the students. And I also train on, something business related. Last year, we were at our Ascend conference, and it was great listening. I think, Chance self-taught himself Facebook marketing last year. So,
Right.
right, and I was thinking, I said, last year, I spent a good amount of educational time on learning how to do Google Sheets. I've always been a stats guy, and we've used Excel and Apple numbers, and they don't communicate well, and they don't work for how we do things. So we had a lot of redundancies. So I self-taught myself how to use spreadsheets much better and a little bit of coding, and it has been phenomenally helpful.
I tell you what, just this past weekend, you mentioned Ascend. That's the mastermind group that we're both in. You screen shared y'all's Google sheet. I was just sitting there like, I was kind of drooling. I was a little envious. I was like, oh, that is so awesome, man. I love that. That is so cool. And I was talking also, one of my black belts that went to the ProMac training this weekend as well is an accountant. And he was kind of geeking out about, in one of the sessions, I led a session and a couple of other guys, they were leaning into metrics a little bit, the importance of retention and drop rates and all these things that we watch. And he was like, Chip, I just didn't really think about it, like the business you guys operate. And he was like, can we talk metrics someday? I'm like, yes, because like you said a while ago, Chris, when I was young in the business, is like, I don't want to do the business. I just want to be on the mat. But I tell people sometimes, I think once you get into the metrics and understand them and you start to see some success, it's so fun to watch them and let them guide you. Like, I think we have a hole here. We can fill that some, right? So such good stuff, man. Well, Master Chris, I didn't mention this earlier, and I just want to throw in here at the end, and I think this is really cool. You actually finished school and became a pharmacist, correct? And you ri- and you bypassed that to move into the martial arts and have a martial arts career, right?
Yes, so I graduated and retired on the same day.
That's so funny.
I pretty much knew going into I only finished school because I had this complex of finishing what I start, and that is one of the things you
Yes.
can't go back a few years later into the middle of pharmacy school. It changes too much. I'm like, I'm gonna finish this, but I was 2 years in and was like, yeah, this is not what I'm gonna be doing.
Well, I brought it up. I didn't bring it up to devalue education anyway, but what I did bring it up for is to encourage somebody. If you're listening and you're not sure which direction to go, this can be a great choice if you're willing to put in the work and be a martial arts school owner, right? So that was kind of the point in that. I just have a ton of respect for you guys. Thank you so much, Chris, for jumping on and spending some time with us, packed full of golden nuggets. And I just am honored and thankful for the friendship we've developed and the time that we get to spend together.
No, I appreciate the invite. Honored to be on here, and we had a conversation about should I switch Ascends to East, and I was like, no, no, I like my Central group. I like Master Chip. I like Chad. That group it's been a great friendship, and Angela and I look up to you and Glen Ann a lot because there's not a lot of other school owners that have done it as a family and been able to all of your kids are involved willingly, and you guys have very similar family, God, Jesus first values. You're in the schools, you're not absentee owners. There's a lot of things that you guys do that we have looked up to for years. So it's amazing to be able to say, to call you a friend and be able to have that, you're a text away is amazing.
Yes, absolutely. Well, love it, my friend. Proud of you and Angela and Nick, your whole family. Really enjoy getting to spend time with your dad as well. So thanks for jumping in. And to those of you guys out there listening, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Give us a like, a share. We need some reviews, etc. And go have an amazing day.
Yes, sir. You as well. Have a fantastic week.